Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the go-to platform where faith-driven entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and experts share their stories, wisdom, and expertise to inspire and impact others. This isn't just another interview series. This is a strategic platform designed to amplify the voices of high-level entrepreneurs, which especially includes kingdom entrepreneurs who are making a real difference in their industries. My goal is simple: to serve you, the expert, by giving you a stage to share your message, expand your reach, and create lasting value for others. Through authentic, in-depth conversations, we uncover the real journeys, challenges, and victories behind today's leading experts. Each interview isn't just content. It's a powerful asset that helps you to establish authority, increase visibility, and connect with the right people. So with that, let's dive into today's episode. Once again, welcome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode. And this is all part of a new series right now. So Expert Interviews with Ken is actually doing a brand new series called Voices of Kingdom Influencers. And today I have two amazing guests, and we're going to have an amazing conversation. Our topic today is the importance of veterans telling their story. And we are going to open today with, well, first I'm going to read both of their bios, and then we're going to open with both of their stories, and we're going to have a conversation around all these things moving forward into this interview. So welcome, Dan. Welcome, Roger. So starting with Dan first, Dan grew up in a military family with a history of service, so it was only natural that he joined the military himself. He is now a proudly retired Army veteran with over 20 years of service and multiple combat deployments from the late 1990s all the way into the 2020s. He is a Christian, a father of two, lover of books. He travels, and he also loves fine scotch. And I've got to, if I had a virtual hat, tip it down to you for loving scotch. The good stuff is definitely good, and you always want to have a nice cigar with that as well. So he now co-hosts the Tracer Burnout podcast with his best friend from childhood, where they ensure that the service of men and women in uniform is not forgotten. So, and his best friend is referring to Roger here. And on to Roger. He is an Army brat who grew up all over the world, including Texas, West Germany, North Carolina, and Colorado. He commissioned in the U.S. Army in 2004 after graduating from East Carolina University. He served in the 82nd Airborne Division and completed 2 combat deployments, one to Afghanistan and one to Iraq. He later assessed into Army Special Operations, serving as a civil affairs officer for the remainder of his career, much of it spent throughout Asia. He is happily married with 4 kids. Wow, you guys, that's absolutely phenomenal. Welcome to today's interview. And so, as I prefaced in the beginning, how I want to start here is with you guys unpacking your story. How did you get here? What is and then also Tracer Burnout is a big thing for you guys. I also want you guys to explain that, but let's start with you guys unpacking your story. So I don't know who wants to go first, but I'm just going to throw the mic at both of you, and you both can just like figure out who's going to go first. So you guys take over.
Dan, how did we get here, brother?
Roger and I have known each other since we were kids. Both of our fathers were in the Army, and we grew up here in the Fort Bragg, Fayetteville area. So we would move back and forth to different places, but we would always come back here. And so we remained friends. And then when we both started our Army careers, we would still return to Fayetteville, obviously, to see our parents, who are,
Mhm.
both retired here. And so we kept the friendship alive across 20 plus years. And
Over
then,
2 days.
uh, and then I retired a few years ago, and Roger just hit a little over a year retired. But we
That's
both
right.
retired right here back in Fayetteville.
That is amazing. Um, so you guys started this podcast, and you also have a website called Tracer Burnout. So first, let's
Yeah.
start with your podcast. What exactly is your own podcast about?
Yeah, perfect. So I guess this was about 2.5 years ago. I was starting to get kind of on the short final for my Army career. Dan had already been retired for a year or so at that point. And I was really kind of trying to get my arms around what I was going to do next. And I wanted to do something involving veterans, and I didn't really know what. So I was taking care of some medical stuff. The home base program, which is the nonprofit arm for the Boston Red Sox Foundation up in Boston. I was doing a medical study up there, and they're helping me get ready for my retirement. And I just remember sitting in my hotel room one night, and I just had a pretty good conversation with another gentleman who kind of inspired me in a way. And I picked up my phone and I texted Dan and just said, "Hey, Dan, I'm interested in starting a nonprofit or something. Are you interested? I don't really know what I want to do." And hit send on that. And he immediately wrote me back and said, "Call me." And then what happened, Dan?
That began a series of long, long conversations,
So
uh,
long.
so long, trying to figure out what we wanted to do and whittling down our scope to basically what it is now. I knew that there are a lot of nonprofits out there, and there are a lot of nonprofits for veterans and their families. And so I knew that we didn't really want to do that. And it's a lot to get into, and we both knew nothing about, a
People
nonprofit or
far
anything
more
like that.
skilled at it than us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there are better people doing that stuff than we could possibly do.
Mm.
But I had for for years, I'd had the idea of doing a podcast, um, just talking to veterans about their time in service. And so that first phone call, I threw the idea out there to Roger about talking to men and women about their time in service. And over the next several months, we kind of whittled it down and said, yeah, we'll find the people that most people don't know are veterans.
Mm.
Uh, People see the same faces and the same names all the time in books, movies, on the news. They see the same types of people portrayed as veterans in movies and TV shows, and sometimes that stuff is realistic, but for the most part, the men and women that serve this country, they do it for a few years and they get out and they go on to be teachers or doctors or paralegals or softball coaches or you know a million and one other things, open their own businesses. And most people don't even know that they're veterans. Their coworkers, their customers, whoever it is, most people wouldn't know that they were veterans. But veterans talking to other veterans will open up in a way that they would not to anybody else.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's a Marine veteran from Vietnam talking to an Army veteran from Grenada. You're both veterans, you both have shared experiences.
Yeah.
You'll open up and you'll make that connection. And that's what we wanted to do, is sit down with another veteran and have these conversations and just talk about their time in service and the things that they did, so that maybe their family could learn a little bit more about their experiences and the things they did and the places they went, but then also to hold on to that for posterity. So, you know, years down the line, grandpa is not just a picture on the wall that, dad says, "Oh yeah, he was in the Navy for a couple of years." Now they can actually go and look back and listen to, on the in the audio format, obviously, listen to their, grandfather, grandmother, whatever, talk about their time in service, or in the video version, they can actually see
Yep.
their relative or their friend talking about their time in service.
Ken, did you hear that pitch he just made? I mean, how could you say no to that? That's the same pitch he gave me.
Yeah, no, that pitch was absolutely amazing. So you decided to title it Tracer Burnout Podcast. And I remember our pre-interview conversation. You got a
Yeah.
very interesting story on why Tracer Burnout. And so kind of want to dive into that a little bit here. Why Tracer Burnout? You had a very unique story around that. And I only remember bits and pieces of it, but I definitely want to hear it again because I found it extremely fascinating on where that
Yeah.
name came from and why.
We, the name came much later from the initial pitch meeting. So we over the ensuing months we batted back and forth. I was still in Virginia and he was in North Carolina, so we had our nightly phone calls and the wonders of both having Apple iPhones. We had the shared note function, so we were able to compare notes and do. God bless Apple. Anyway, so we did a lot of batting back and forth on what we were going to settle on for a title. And to be fair, we had some pretty great ideas. A lot of them would have run afoul of copyright law, I'm sure. So,
Oops.
but it's kind of funny. We that one we settled on, Tracer Burnout, which we both love, was one that I just kind of thought of, off the top of my head. While I don't know, I think I was on a jog or something. So not during one of the actual brainstorm sessions, but during some physical activity. So Dan, you want to explain what a tracer round is?
So a tracer round, for those that don't know, and I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence, but a tracer round is essentially a guiding light round. It is set up. Um, it's about every fifth round in a magazine or in a belt for a belt-fed machine gun, and it is to show you where you are firing at, and then the subsequent penetrating rounds will go in that direction. But it's not the tracer's not going to last forever. Eventually, that phosphorus on that round does burn out.
Mm,
So your time in service, your time in uniform is essentially a tracer round. It whatever service you're in, they will tell you where to go. They will tell you what to wear. They will tell you where to be, what time, what uniform. They will feed you, clothe you, put a roof over your head. Everything big and small is pretty much taken care of. The military or the service is your tracer round, but eventually that time in service comes to an end after 3 years or 20 or 30, whether it's because you chose to get out, or maybe it was adverse action, or maybe it was injury, but it will come to an end eventually. That tracer round will burn out.
mm,
So we start off, a little with a little bit beforehand, why somebody chose the service they did, what their family history of service is, a little bit of background, but then the vast majority of the show is that trace around. It's what they did in service, the experiences they had, the people they met that impacted them, good or bad. And sometimes that conversation will last an hour, hour and a half, 3.5 hours. But
Not typical, but
eventually,
has happened.
yeah, not typical, but it has happened. But eventually, that time of service does come to an end. That tracer burnout does happen, and then we'll, kind of hit the tail end of what they're doing now, and then how their service was impact or how their
Yeah,
service impacted their life now.
how it shaped them. Yeah.
Yeah.
that is amazing. I love that. And so, my next question around all of that is why do you guys think so many veterans struggle to believe their story is worth telling?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. A lot of it has to do with the warrior ethos that we're inculcated with from the time we start, our basic training or our officer basic and to the time we leave. We're always told to downplay our accomplishments
Mm,
because it's all about the team. It's a very collective mindset, and as any unit should be. And so, servant leaders, servant leadership, you should always, put the health and welfare of your subordinates before your own. It's all about the team. It's all about the unit. That's what makes the military run. And that's why we're the best military in the world. But when you think about that at the individual level, when it's time to leave, that can cause an identity crisis in somebody.
Yeah.
so I think that the next question I want to ask is at what point did you realize that your own stories needed to be spoken out loud and not just carried quietly?
I had had the idea for this podcast for quite some time because I I was tired of seeing the same faces on the news doing their 5 minute hits about it's the generals and the admirals talking, talking about areas that they are obviously qualified to talk about, but that's what people think of that have no affiliation with the military. That's who they think of as the people they see on the news, or they think about the TV shows and the movies that they've seen, and it's always the I should say most of the time it's the two people, right? You've got the guy that's super awesome, jumped into Berlin off the back of a bald eagle and strangled Hitler with his own mustache guy, or it's the veteran who, got back from Iraq and their entire unit was decimated and they've got PTSD so bad and the VA won't help them and their child is dying of the rarest cancer possible known to man, and so now they're robbing a bank because they just, everything's gone wrong. Those are the two people that you typically see portrayed in TV and movies. Not always, but typically. But and then those are also the faces that you see on the news is the generals and the admirals and the special operators and things like that. And that's great. All those people exist. It serves a purpose. But that's 0.0001% of our entire armed forces. We wanted to give a voice to not to the voiceless, but to the unheard who who need to know that their service matters and that it is appreciated,
Mhm.
so that when Veterans Day rolls around and somebody tells them thank you for your service, now they can actually know what they're thanking that veteran for.
I think that's powerful. That's so powerful. And that's something that, when I come across any kind of person that's in the service, anyone, army, military, doesn't matter what it is, I'm always intentional to say thank you so much for your service to this country. And so I'm also going to say that to you guys as well. Thank you for your service. Thank you for fighting for our freedom. Thank you for doing the hard work. And yeah, thank you so much. And so, in light of that, in your experience, what emotions tend to surface first when a veteran finally does start sharing their story? What do you find happens? What's your experience with some of these stories and the emotions that come up and everything that just starts flowing to the surface?
Well, it's one of the reasons we follow a discussion style format versus an interview is it really promotes the conversation, but it also brings the barriers down. And
Mm,
to that end, Dan mentioned some of our episodes are a little bit longer. Sometimes it takes somebody 30, 45 minutes to an hour to even kind of get loosened up to the point where they're ready to start talking about that stuff. And that's really when those, the barriers come down. So a lot of veterans, I could myself be one of these, will kind of put up that hard outer shell. They disguise a lot of that with humor, sometimes dark humor,
Oftentimes dark humor.
often dark humor, the gallows humor, right? So sometimes it takes a little while to get past that. But once people know that you're genuine and you really care, I mean, most people will open up at least a little bit.
Yeah. That from the people that we've talked to uh, so far, it can run the gambit emotionally. Some people, they look back with fondness. That in almost every episode, we're going to be laughing about something,
Hmm.
and it's usually something stupid.
Usually.
But there are some episodes where we have guests get emotional, reflecting back on maybe things that happened in Vietnam or in Afghanistan, or just looking back at their time in total in service. So, yeah, it can run the gambit emotionally. Um,
Yeah.
but like Roger said, it is just a conversation because it is
Hmm.
at the very base level. It is just veterans talking to veterans. We're doing it in front of, microphones and cameras, but it could be happening at a bar, at a coffee shop,
Right.
At the
at
barbershop area.
church. It's a conversation that could be happening anywhere.
Absolutely. Now, all right. So as you were just sharing there, both you guys, I wrote down what I want to do next. So I'm gonna
Okay.
kind of put you guys on the spot a little bit. Hope you don't mind. Um, but I would like each of you to share a story from your time in the service and things that happened through that, maybe emotions that came up for you during that. Whatever it is, you pick what it is you want to share. It is your choice, but share a story, an experience from your time in the service.
Mm, yeah, that's that is kind of getting put on the spot.
I,
Okay,
I
uh,
have one. I
go
have
ahead,
one,
Roger.
Dan, if you need another minute.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was and I've been thinking about this a lot lately because the NCO, non-commissioned officer that I'm talking about passed away last year. So I've been thinking about him a lot. He had some health issues, but when I was a second lieutenant, so the most junior officer you could possibly be, I I'll put it this way: from the time I commissioned in 2004 to the time I was sitting in a war zone was about 8 months. So
Mm,
it was a pretty quick turn. So I'm in Afghanistan. I've been through my basic officer school. I was a field artillery officer. That's how I started. So I'm in a combat unit. I'm in a combat zone. And the first place they send me, believe it or not, was up to the brigade staff, which it's a like a colonel level, so an O6 level staff. So I was actually up there for the first 2 or 3 months of my deployment, waiting to get sent down to the company. And I developed a relationship with this young NCO, non-commissioned officer, who was kind of helping me run the small section that we were in charge of. And we would go out on missions. So we would kind of do both. We would be in the tactical operations center doing staff stuff and monitoring and doing all the stuff people think of when they think of the big screen on the wall and all that. We would do that, and then we would also go out on missions. And he and I had a more senior non-commissioned officer who was kind of in charge of the section. And that NCO and I kept butting heads over the way we were going to run things. So I was the junior officer. He was the senior non-commissioned officer. Admittedly, I would be the first one to admit he knew more about what was going on and how to run that thing than I did. But there was still a little bit of friction there because at the end of the day, I had to be in charge. So this other junior NCO would go behind me and undo things that I did, and it just created some friction. And I remember one day he and I got to a point where we started to raise our voices at each other just a little bit, and it turned into all right, let's take this outside. So we
oh,
take yeah. Well, I'm getting there. And he was a really big muscular dude. If it really came down to a brawl, he would have balled me up badly, I would say. And we walk around the back. There's nobody else present. And I tell him, I'm like, take off your top. We were just wearing t-shirts underneath. I'll take off your top. And he's like, all right. And then I take mine off. And I'm like, all right, we're obviously not going to fight each other. That would be crazy. But you are going to go ahead and air any grievances you have, air them now. There's no repercussions. There's nothing. Like, obviously we got a problem. I need to hear it. Let's go. And he screamed at me and told me everything I was doing wrong. And most of the things that he was pointing out were genuine. And I said what I needed to say. And at the end of it, we hugged each other and everything was peachy after that. Like, everything was good after that. And he and I stayed in touch for years and years and years, because, a month or two later I was out the door down to go do something else, but we stayed in touch. And it was a very humbling experience as a junior officer. And I mean, I don't think I was being too cocky about it. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, but it was a very humbling experience to go through that and to really see something from somebody else's perspective and really, really learn what it's like to be a leader, not just from a textbook, but to actually have to walk it. And I do cherish that memory, especially now that he's no longer with us. But.
Wow. To be able to have the the balls to do that, especially with somebody that's like way bigger than you. I don't even know if I would have had the cojones to do that. Are you kidding me? There's no way. That guy would have intimidated the crap out of me. I would have shrunk down like a little, yeah. No, oh my gosh. So kudos to you, my friend.
He was a good guy.
Daniel, what's your story?
Well, I don't have anything quite like that because I've always been right. But
There you go.
Um, I'm just gonna stay silent on that one.
but I'll tell you about one of my very first experiences in the military. I, you know, I grew up all over the place because my dad was in the Army, and he was not happy when I enlisted. Um, he and I have talked about this many times since, but he didn't think that I was going to be able to make it because I don't have respect for authority.
And he was right.
I still don't have much respect for authority, but
Dear old dad,
besides
right.
besides the point. I went off to basic training, completed it there, and I got assigned to Fort Drum, New York, which is practically Canada, and it is, I think, probably the coldest place on Earth. It made me hate snow. Um,
Have you ever been to
but
Alaska?
we have troops from Alaska that come to train in Fort Drum.
Um,
They do their
I
cold
think,
weather training in Fort Drum.
yeah, I think Alaska probably, I don't know. In my opinion, I think Alaska tops.
The
You'd be
fishing's good.
surprised.
Maybe not. But anyhow, okay, continue. Sorry.
But anyway, so at this point, I am 18 years old. I am full of myself. I'm a brand new graduate of basic training, and I'm getting on the bus in, I think it was November, to head up to Fort Drum, New York. And I know what I'm doing, and I'm sure of myself. And it starts getting colder at the further north we go, and we get to Fort Drum, and all it is, it's just a white blanket. There had been a huge, huge snowstorm, and I was the only person on the bus by the time it got to that point. We stopped at a small gas station there on post, had like two pumps. And he was like, "Here you go. Here's your stop." What? I step off in t-shirt, shorts, and tennis shoes
Oh,
into about 3.5, 4 feet of snow. It is well below freezing. And I'm holding my dress uniform in one hand high above my head, and I've got my duffel bag with all the rest of my crap barely holding it up. And I have no idea where to go. I like
You're in the
I
army
don't
now.
I did not know anything was what was going on. Nothing.
Was it dark?
No, it wasn't dark.
Okay.
Thank God for that, I suppose. But
thankfully, right?
yeah, I don't think that I have ever felt that lost before or after in my entire life. And I just remember standing there in that snow, freezing my tail off, going, "Oh man, Dad was right," and I could never
What
tell him.
What have I done?
Now, this was your stop, so you had arrived at the destination where you were going to serve, or this was just a stop
Yeah.
on the journey?
No, that was Fort Drum.
Okay.
I ended up going inside, and the the there was a little desk inside with a phone for new arrivals to call, and eventually somebody came to pick me up and took me to the replacement depot area. Yeah,
Replacement.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
I don't even know what to say to that one. Like, oh my gosh. Like, wow.
yeah. That was the beginning of my military service, and I just remember thinking my dad was so right about this, and I can never tell him.
Well, well, there is one simple little question. So the room with the desk and the phone, was it at least heated?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
well, at least that. The
yeah,
other thing that I want to say, and I wrote down because I wrote it down because I wanted to remember to make a comment of it. The fact that you don't really you shared in the beginning of your story that you don't really, I forget the words that you said around it. You don't really mesh with authority that well, and
yes.
I identify with that because me, I've got pretty much a rebel heart. Like I'm the person like that when somebody if it's a certain thing somebody tells me not to do or well you can't do this, me, I will sit there and I will try to find a hack around it to where I can like be able to like do what I want and kind of have my cake and eat it too. Part of that comes from also my own transformational story. So when I first went on my journey to lose weight, that's how I started. I was like, you know what, F you system, I'm going to find my way through this my way, and I'm going to have my cake and eat it too. That's exactly what I did. And that's what I like doing through life is things like that. So I definitely identify with the whole authority thing. Plus, I don't trust most authorities either.
That's what it really stems from. It's not a lack of respect for authority. I suppose it is a generous dose of mistrust in authority.
Yes.
Well
Yes.
said.
I
Yes.
identify with that. I love it. I love it. So now, how does telling one story help bridge the gap between military identity and post-service life? What I also want to tie into this is the aspect of it is a reality. Some people come out of there and they've got what's it called? PTSD. I think it is post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Stress.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Some people have mild cases, some people have severe cases, and a lot of times it's kind of like refining their place back in civilization, back in their life. So how does telling one story help bridge that gap between military identity and post-service life?
Yeah. So for starters, Dan and I should probably lead with we are not licensed psychiatrists. Yeah, there we go.
Legal
So we
mumble
got that.
jumble, yeah, all this stuff. So this is just stories we're telling and advice for
Yeah.
all this stuff. Yeah.
So it's cathartic for a lot of people, myself included. I think Dan would agree, to be able to talk about a lot of this stuff. Growing up here in the shadow of Fort Bragg, we grew up around a lot of Vietnam veterans as well, and we saw firsthand the. This would have been, a decade or so removed from the end of Vietnam when we were growing up in the 80s, right? So, but I mean, we saw then and then throughout the ensuing decades just the way those guys, a lot of them kind of hung their heads down and didn't ever want to talk about anything because of the appalling way they were treated when they got home. And we wanted to create a venue for people to be able to talk about their service so that we wouldn't have to go through what the Vietnam veterans went through. God bless them. And so that's kind of what we started here, and we've had several guests come to us, usually a couple weeks or months after the fact, after it's been long released, and all the hoopla with us releasing all their shorts and all the social media, and they'll come to us after and just say, "You helped me heal by talking about things that I hadn't even. Not only had I not really talked about them, but I hadn't even really thought about a lot of those memories that I had when I had served, and it just kind of came out."
Mm.
So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Daniel, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's when service members take off the uniform, they're leaving a piece of themselves behind, and some people have real difficulty adjusting. Um, they don't know how to deal with a change in supervisory techniques, shall we say, the bureaucracy, all the paperwork, all the lack of camaraderie, people that are just out for themselves, even though you're supposed to be working together on the same team. This guy's trying to make himself look better instead of everybody working for a common goal. Um, some people in leadership positions can't handle their subordinates the same way they could when they were in uniform. There's a lot of challenges. And I think by by sitting down and talking about their time in service, I think it helps, especially newer veterans, kind of decompress a bit in a way that they couldn't by just taking off the uniform and immediately, returning to the civilian workforce who doesn't understand them, doesn't understand the things that they've been through, doesn't think the same jokes are funny, doesn't handle, a workload the same way, doesn't handle, uh, leadership or being a subordinate in the same way, teamwork the same way, and they have to adjust or get fired or their business would fail or what have you. So they bottle all that stuff up and they can't talk to their family members about it because their family members or friends won't understand the things that they're going through. So they
Yeah.
just bottle it all up and they push through it because that's what the military told them to do.
Mm.
Suck it up and drive on. And I think by providing just even if it's just for an hour or 2 hours to sit down and have a conversation, I think it helps them decompress and kind of get things out. And I think like Roger said, in many cases it is cathartic because some people have experiences that they've never told anybody about before because they're traumatic or horrible for a variety of reasons. But a lot of them just feel like they're not being heard.
Yeah. It's
And
big.
and sitting down for a couple of hours. I mean, we could our shows are normally around the 2 hour, 2.5 hour long mark.
Wow.
But even if somebody only did 3 years, you cannot sum up all their experiences in 2.5 hours.
Mm.
There's just too much that happens in a person's life in that stretch of time. But it does kind of open the door for them talking about their time in service. That if maybe a family member or a coworker or a friend hears them, then that person can come and ask the veteran questions based off of what they heard talked about on the show and help open that veteran up more and then more and more and more and smooth that integration back into the civilian society.
Earlier, Dan talked about the two stereotypes of veteran that a lot of people think of because of news and media. That's what we're trying to break that, and we use this term ironically, but try to humanize veterans by doing this. So yes, your coworker can see your episode and say, "Oh, well, that actually makes a whole lot of sense," and that kind of explains why they're that way. And I hadn't really thought about those things, and also I had no idea that the person sitting next to me in the cubicle had done all those pretty cool things, I would say. So
I think that's huge that it opens up the conversation for them, for, friends or family or whoever listens to it. It opens up more conversation to happen. So they begin talking about that more. They begin sharing more of their experiences and they begin feeling more comfortable with that. I think that is so powerfully huge.
Yeah. We got an email a while back. Um, I wish I could remember his last name, but I can't. First name David. So David, if you're somehow listening to this, shout out to you. But his dad had been in the Navy and had never talked about it. Had never talked about it.
Wow.
But David was listening to the show and was like, he heard us, talking about the importance of sharing your story. And he asked his dad, hey dad, tell me about your time in the Navy. And his dad readily opened up and would talk about it when asked. But if nobody asked, he wasn't saying anything.
No. Sometimes it's that simple.
Was it just because, so just curious question, was it just because he was being humble? Was it because he just didn't want to talk about it? Why didn't he? I mean, I'm just curious. Like, why didn't he ever share that story? Why didn't he ever, I mean, share his story unless asked?
Well, I can't speak to that specifically, but sometimes it is humility. Sometimes it's just, and you get this a lot with the older veterans. I did what I had to do, and I came back and moved on with my life. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's traumatic experiences there, and they just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to relive it. Or I think the worst thing is the people that serve, and this is probably the vast majority of service members
Most of
who
our
burn
guests
out.
say, I already know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
So,
Is, oh, I don't have a story to tell.
Mm.
I didn't do all the cool stuff. I only did X. I didn't do anything. I only did Y.
So they're kind of throwing themselves, they're prejudging themselves, they're throwing themselves underneath the bus, not realizing that big or small, they still had an impact.
Yeah, because they are fed the same stereotype as the civilian population. Who do we see on TV? It's the super cool guys that doing all this awesome stuff, or
The
it's
train wreck. Yeah.
yeah, the guy that's a train wreck, or it's General so and so, who hasn't worn a uniform in 25 years, but he's paid $100,000 for a 5-minute hit on whatever news agency, given the same spiel.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's who they see, and that's who they feel, exemplifies their service. And so it's not a shame thing. It's just, oh, what I did wasn't really that important.
Kind of a
I
resignation.
I you know I took parachutes that had been deployed and I repacked them and tested them and made sure they were good to go. That's not a big deal. Roger can
Well,
tell you that's a huge deal.
I
Mm.
jumped out of airplanes for a long time. It's a very big deal.
Yeah. Oh, I was just I just filed paperwork and I was a clerk and that didn't really do anything. Well, guess what you were doing? You were making sure that everybody got their pay. You made sure everybody got their insurance right. Their family members got their insurance right. God
Yep.
forbid somebody had to deal with death benefits. You're the person that made that happen.
Mm.
Yep.
All the pieces matter.
That is so huge, so powerful. What
Yeah.
you guys do
It,
for people, I love. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say it drives me nuts more than it. I can understand if somebody doesn't want to talk about their service because of a traumatic experience, or they're jaded in some way. I totally
I was
get
going
that.
to say,
But
we have cynics too. We left them out. Yeah.
yeah, but the people that downplay their service, it drives me nuts because you put on the uniform so that somebody doesn't have to. But this is a total volunteer army for that reason. Or a volunteer military for that reason. It's because we don't force people to serve if they don't want to. And to say that you don't have a story and your service doesn't matter, oh, drives me insane.
You are literally taking the place of those who are unable to, just can't, or whatever. You are taking the place. It's just so we're all Christians in this room. So it's kind of the same thing as what Christ did for us. He took our place for something that we could never do. So the people that are going out there to serve are taking the place of others that just could never do that, don't have the capabilities, don't want to, could be they're lazy, could be whatever. And these people are willingly putting on the uniform and doing whatever it is. It could be being in a factory, it could be whatever it is, packaging up stuff or being on the front lines of something. But nonetheless, in both cases and in all cases, you put on that uniform, you are doing the very thing that not many people are willing to do nor want to do. And you are taking their place. So it really doesn't matter what exactly you've done in that uniform. It mainly matters that you put on that uniform faithfully day after day.
Yep.
That's very kind. I mean, serving this country is an honor and a privilege, and it should always, it's called the service for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But we serve the country and its people and its constitution. And you have good people and you have bad people that put on that uniform, and we're not saints. You got the good, the bad, and the ugly, but at the end of the day, it's called the service for a reason.
Amen. Amen to that. So, what have you personally learned about yourselves through listening to other veterans' stories?
I would say that it has certainly been beneficial for me uh, to know that, and I mean, you know this in the back of your mind, but it has certainly been beneficial to me to hear veterans of different services and different areas who have very similar experiences to my own. That I didn't go through these experiences all by myself. I'm not the only one that's dealt with these issues.
Yeah.
It's it's in a set well, it's a reassurance to know that you're not alone in the things that you've been through. Yeah.
Building community. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. So, what do you wish civilians understood more deeply about military service?
More deeply.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I could kind of reiterate my last point about, you slap on the uniform, you're just a person just like anybody else. So you're not a saint. You're not a bad person per se. I don't know. Maybe there's some. Dan and I've known the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right? I'll say some of the
Right.
best people I've ever known I served with, and some of the worst people I've ever known
Yeah.
I also served with. Right? So back to the humanizing. Uh, we're just citizen soldiers, citizen Marines, citizen sailors, airmen. We're your neighbors. We're we're just normal people doing a job.
Yeah.
So, as we begin to kind of wrap up here, what are some further things that you would like to share about the Tracer Burnout podcast that you would like the listeners to know about?
Well, you can find the show on all the audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, and so many others that I didn't even know
Audible
existed.
has podcasts.
Yep. Audible, Amazon.
I didn't know that. I thought Audible was just a book reading thing.
They
Nope.
have podcasts.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And there are a lot of other podcatchers out there that I'd never even heard of until we started. The video versions are on YouTube and Rumble, and it's Tracer Burnout on all the social media, in which case you will be more than likely communicating with Roger since he deals with all the social media because social media is the devil.
What do you really think, man?
Social media is the devil because of all the stupid, idiotic, and I'd like to add a few more other choice words to that, but
Yeah.
they're stupid algorithm. Like
Yeah.
it's
Well, so
stupid.
social media is a good idea poorly executed.
Thank you. Yeah.
It is a great idea to connect people from all over the world to share their experiences and to stay in, contact with friends and loved ones. However, it has also managed to bring out the absolute worst in people in many cases.
Agreed.
But this isn't about the social paradigm. This is this is about the
I know.
show. So
I just had it like bleh,
yeah.
you hit like a little trigger button there when you talked about it
Oh,
that way.
believe me, I
That's just
know
like I
I
had
could
to go.
go
I had to throw that in there.
I could go on and on. But and if any of your listeners are veterans and are interested in coming on the show, or not, maybe not even necessarily veterans, because we have two different versions of the show. But if they're doing something in the veteran sphere, whether it's, they're a doctor that, treats veterans, or something like that, works for a nonprofit that helps veterans, whatever the case is, they can get in touch with us through the social media. By us, I mean Roger. Or they can go to the website, tracerburnout.com, and there is a
Contact
contact
us.
us link that'll shoot us an email. Yeah. And we are always looking to get people on. We we'll set up a talk beforehand, and then we'll set up scheduling. But we've had, Marines, Navy, Army, Air Force, Coast Guard.
What about the Space Force, Dan?
Space Force isn't real. We've had on combat soldiers, we've had on
Ooh.
service support soldiers, we've had on, aviators, we've had on, demolitions people, engineers, logistics clerks, machinists mates. It doesn't matter what you did or how long you did it or what service you were in, your service matters.
I'm writing down something because when we click off record, I'm going to lean in on this question because you piqued a little curiosity with something you just said there. But I'm going to leave it out of this particular podcast and ask you when we click off here. What are 3 to 5 things that you would like to leave the listener with today?
Okay.
I want to hear at least two from each of you. So
Oh,
I want each of you to share your part in that. Is basically what I'm saying.
okay. Um, One, put down your phone, turn off your screen
Hmm.
for at least a couple of hours every day. And I'm not talking about when you go to sleep. Live your life in the real world, not the one that the algorithm creates for you. Two, read more. My God, read more. Like an actual book, or a magazine. It does not an audiobook, podcast. Actually put the pages in front of your face to again escape from screen time. But physical media is important because no one can take that away from you. They can strip episodes of your favorite podcast away. They can take whatever service will lose the rights to whatever book you were listening to, but physical media, books, magazines, newspapers, if you own that, you own that, and no one can take it away from you. And of course, reading is important because it, obviously enlightens the mind, regardless of whatever you're reading, if it's about, carburetor repair, or, the Siege of Malta, you know, whatever you're interested in, read more about it. And then third, if you are passionate about something, it doesn't matter what it is, within reason. If you are passionate about something, do it.
Amen.
It's not always going to be easy. Maybe it's getting in shape. Maybe it's writing a book. Maybe it's spending more time with your kids. Maybe it's being more active in your church. Whatever it is that you're passionate about, do it and persevere. It's going to be up and down. You're going to have, peaks and pitfalls. Persevere. There you
All
go.
right, is
That's
it
my
my
thing.
turn?
Yeah, Roger, go.
You're passing the baton to me. The first one I would say is do something hard, difficult every day.
Mm.
Wake up early, do a ice plunge, workout. It doesn't have to all be physical. Another big one I like to say to people is this is a big one. If you need to reconcile with somebody you love, that's a real big one. Pick up that phone and make that call. Do something difficult. You don't want to get complacent. You don't want to get soft and squishy, even if it's just one thing at a time. The next one I would say, it kind of springboards off that a little bit, but just it's relationships, people. People are important. Christ told us that love is above all else. So don't ever forget that, whether you're dealing with friends, family, coworkers, or complete strangers. We've been commanded to love others as we love ourselves. Not recommended, not suggested, commanded to. And so just remember that when you're dealing with people, and you never know what somebody else is going through sometimes. That guy that cuts you off at the in front of the red light, and you get your dander up and you get all upset. You have no idea what that guy's going through.
Sure.
So just approach every situation you can with grace and humility, and just it's all about love. That's all I got.
Amen. I want to focus that in just a little bit. So I want you guys both to give a couple more in relation to why somebody who's a
Okay.
veteran, been in the service or whatever, why somebody should come aboard your podcast. So give two powerful reasons why each, if you can, why somebody should come aboard your podcast to share their story if they've been in any kind of service.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
go ahead.
go ahead, brother.
Well, straight out of the gate, probably the biggest one is that we are awesome, and that's all there is to it. I mean, we are awesome, and you can be awesome with us.
I was going to say
No,
something very similar to that. So,
no, if I would say that there are a couple of each person is obviously different. Um, but if you're even thinking about it, debating it in your head, then you already know that you want to. Maybe you have an experience that we haven't talked about before. And maybe you've been through something or had a skill or a proficiency that we haven't talked about before. Come on, share it not just with us, but then share it for all the rest of the whatever that field is.
yeah. Well, and that kind of goes along with maybe the thing I just said about, do something hard. Maybe that difficult thing is for you to finally come to terms with and talk about some of those experiences that you had.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe, just maybe, you want to preserve that legacy of service. You want to be able to share your experiences now so that because Al Gore's internet is forever. So 30, 40, 50 years from now, your grandkids or your great grandkids, maybe, nieces, nephews, whatever, they'll be able to, listen to you talk about what you did so that you're not just a picture on the wall.
You went there with the Al Gore, huh? Man, bear,
Al
pig.
Gore gave us the internet. Everybody knows that's true.
I think I'm missing an inside joke here because I'm kind of going, what?
It's an old South Park thing. The man bear pig is South Park, and then Al Gore did claim in the late '90s that he was the one that invented the internet. That is a thing that happened.
Okay. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've kind of already alluded to it earlier in the episode, but now I want to really lean in specifically here. How can people reach out to you guys, connect with you guys, follow you guys, get on the podcast, all the things? What are links that you guys would like to share so people can get into your world?
Sure. So just easiest one's probably just tracerburnout.com. Scroll down to the bottom to the contact us. That'll make its way to our email. We check our email basically all the time. We're also on all the social medias except for TikTok, which is Chinese spyware. We like to do American spyware much more. So
Oh.
we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X. I think that
Yep.
covers it.
Yep.
We're easy to find. Just look for the green circle.
We love to do it in person, but we can also do it virtually. So if you're in, we're here in North Carolina, but if you're in California, we can do it, no problem. Um, if you're in Canada, we might make an exception for you.
I mean,
You're
I
not
mean,
France, so we can make an
well,
exception.
New France.
Oh, I love it.
Veterans find themselves everywhere, all across the world. So Yeah, we will talk to you no matter where you are because it's your service that's important.
Yep.
I love the fact that you guys have really fun jives and like little jokes that you like put out there. I mean, it just makes it interesting and fun. I
We
love
have been through far too many serious things to take, to take
Life
life
too
too
seriously.
seriously now.
it. No, I love it. It's very refreshing, actually, you guys. So I love it. So you guys, the links as well as both of their bios are going to be in the description below this YouTube video. So you'll be able to click on their links, get in their world, connect with them, get on their podcast if you've been in the service, and share your story. So you'll see their bios first, and then their links below to get in their world. Lastly, you guys, so maybe you've heard me allude to it in this episode. Maybe this is the first time you've ever seen something from me, and you're kind of just like going, okay, well, who's this Ken guy? What's he all about? Well, this is a brand new interview series that I'm doing, as I mentioned in the beginning, but I'm also a weight loss coach. So I've lost 62 and a half pounds and I've kept it off for 7+ years now, all without a diet and having that be sustainable. But how? Like, how did I jump out of the major majority of the people, 95% of the people that go to lose weight, but can't keep it off once they've lost it? How did I become the 5%? Well, I'm going to tell you what it's not. It is not about a diet. It is not about following some kind of crazy list. It's not about shakes. It's definitely not about spending thousands of dollars on supplements, as I know a lot of people out there have done and are disappointed with the results. It's not about a shot. And it's definitely not about taking some idiotic Ozempic pill. Good Lord, stay away from those, please. Right now, I'm actually giving away my 3 secrets to not only help you to lose weight, but also to help you feel energized and get healthy without starving or dieting. Maybe you've got sugar issues. Maybe you've got hunger issues. Maybe you've got emotional eating. Whatever it is, um, I've got a mini educational boot camp where I expose the 3 biggest lies that are keeping people sick, stuck, and overweight because that's how that industry makes money. And I show them how they can fuel their body God's way and keep the weight off for life, finally, like I've been able to do easily, sustainably for 7+ years now. This boot camp, it's not an eating plan. It is not a workout plan. It is a foundation that you will move forward from and build throughout your journey. And my guarantee is it's a foundation that you will never, ever be moved from ever again. No matter what the industry throws at you, no matter what the messaging is, you'll never be moved from that platform again, from your new foundation that you will build from that point. So that boot camp is very reasonably priced, and I priced it for that reason. I pretty much wanted to take out the factor of, well, I got to ask my spouse or I got to ask my significant other. You guys, ladies, I know you easily drop $200 on a new outfit. You don't even ask your spouse or significant other. Guys, we've got accessories all over the place. You got cars, you got camping gear, you got workout stuff, we got the ear pods. Easily, we spend $200 out there without talking to the significant other. That is why my boot camp is priced the way it is, because I want it to be affordable for everybody. You've got nothing to lose but those extra pounds, and you've got everything to gain in the right and freeing way. So the links to get into my world and to join that mini educational boot camp, you will also find below. All Daniel and Roger's stuff. Below that will be the links to get into my world. Jump aboard that mini educational boot camp. All right. So with that, do you guys have any last minute thoughts that you would like to share before we close off today's episode?
Nope, I'm good.
Roger, you're
I'd like
muted.
to give a
There you
tip.
go.
Yeah, I'd like to give a tip of the hat to Miss Rachel Nelson, who kind of brokered us meeting each other. And so thank you for that. And it was a real pleasure talking with you this evening. We really appreciate it.
You know, it's been a
Yes.
pleasure talking with you guys too. I love when I have 2 people on here. I shared that in a pre-interview. It just creates such a synergy, and I've loved hearing everything you guys have shared today. Daniel, go ahead and share what you wanted to share there.
Oh, no, I was just saying thank you very much for having us on. This has been
Oh,
great.
you're very, very welcome. All right, you guys. Well, that is a wrap. So have a great rest of your day or evening, depending on where you are in the world and what time of day you are listening. And I will catch you on the next interview. Talk to you guys later.